Well, hello and welcome to Mind Shifters Radio. I'm Tim Hayes. I'm your host for the first hour. And what is today? Well, today is a Wednesday, January 22nd, 2025. And as always, we're grateful to everyone who's joining us here today, whether you're listening live or through the archives, as we spend another couple of hours teaching and supporting people in using some of the most powerful, effective, efficient, and accessible tools I've ever encountered. These tools are available absolutely free through the tireless efforts of Dr. Michael and Jeannie Rice on the website at whyagain.org. If you go to that webpage and click on the two words that say Start Here in the upper left-hand corner, it will take you to a page where you can download and read Chapter 24 of Dr. Michael Rice's book. His book is titled, Why Is This Happening to Me Again? And that chapter of the book contains a narrative description and explanation of the primary tool in this work. That tool is called the Reality Management Worksheet, sometimes called the Reality Management Wake-Up Sheet, and it's a tool I've been using to great effect for over 20 years now to improve the quality of my life and most of my relationships, and to turn any negative emotional experience I have into part of the infallible guidance system that each and every one of us has been given. You can also download the actual worksheet process itself. It's a simple PDF file. Click the link, download it, print it off, copy it as often as you'd like, and use it over and over again absolutely free. You can also download a whole host of audio files of shows just like this one, where people have been stepped through that worksheet process. So if you choose to listen to those, even repeatedly, they can serve as a powerful tutorial for you to help you get maximum benefit from these tools in the shortest amount of time possible. You can also go to your app store and type in the three words Heartland Aramaic Forgiveness. And if you choose to do that before you're done typing the word forgiveness, you'll see the glowing heart icon. If you tap on that, it will let you download a completely free and private app that contains the Reality Management Worksheet. It contains an abbreviated version of that worksheet process, and it contains a copy of the Dragon Klingon game, which is a wonderful way to introduce these tools to even younger audiences. We hope people do all of that soon and often, primarily because it tends to improve the quality of people's lives the more they actively apply these tools in their lives. And secondarily, because it tends to prompt comments, questions, answers, and testimonials. And if you have any of those to share with us, we would appreciate you doing so by giving us a call. Actually, it would be on the, today it's on the Podbean app. Usually it's on the Needle app. Or you can send me an email. You can email me at tjh@mindshifters-academy.org. Or you can email Jeannie at jeanie@yagain.org. That's whyagain.org. And if you send us a comment or a question or a testimonial or an answer or a refutation of our work, we will address it on the internet show, and then as time allows, send you a notification about what day and time that occurred so you can listen back to the archives for your feedback or input. And we greatly appreciate whenever anybody chooses to do that, because it makes it infinitely easier for us to live into our intention with this work. The intention we have with this work is to be of service, and that is just a lot easier to do when we know how these things are landing for you. And what is it that's landing for you? Well, we talk about the Reality Management Worksheet. We talk about some of the other tools that Michael and Jeannie make available absolutely free. We talk about various books written by teachers that are focusing on the same kinds of dynamics that we observe that help us create the kind of lives that we are creating, whether we're appreciative of that or not. So we're reading and doing commentary on books like A Course in Miracles and The Way of Mastery and A Walk in the Physical and Butterflies Are Free to Fly, and the list goes on and on. Lizards Eat Butterflies by David E. Martin and others. So one of the things that's happened this week so far, on Monday and Tuesday of this week, we didn't have a show because there were technical problems, and today the show is being done through Podbean, so we're hopeful that it is getting out to you in a format that is understandable and clear, and that the sound quality is good. And we are hopeful to be back online in the near future with Podbean. I meant to say with Needle. What's happened since we had a show on Friday, it was the weekend and I was traveling a bit, and as I traveled, I was listening to the podcast series titled The Telepathy Tapes. And the Telepathy Tapes have a focus on what teachers and some parents and caregivers of nonverbal people with autism have known for years, which is that some of these people have remarkable talents. And it's been well publicized and documented that every once in a while somebody who's a nonverbal autistic will have a remarkable skill for playing at the piano anything that he or she has ever heard before. Or they'll have a remarkable ability for memorizing dates, or they'll have a remarkable ability for doing mathematical, even advanced mathematical calculations in their head faster than someone could do with a calculator. And so these teachers and parents who are working with autistic people who are nonverbal have been gradually becoming more and more vocal about the fact that the savant gifts, the genius level gifts that some of these nonverbal autistic people possess include mental telepathy, being able to read each other's minds, being able to read their caregivers' minds or their parents' minds or their teachers' minds. And one of the best parts about that podcast series that's titled The Telepathy Tapes is that it advocates for creating the assumption that there's competence inside the person who's nonverbal, whether that is from just a purely speculatory position, or whether you're actually going to explore it by working to help the intelligence that's contained within the body, or at least associated with that physical body, helping that intelligence communicate. And one of the things that they do is they have created a process where these people can either point to letters on a letterboard, or they can type on a tablet or a laptop. And it's a real challenging skill for them, because often they don't have as much control over their physical body as would make that easy to do. And so even though they know what they want to communicate, and some of them know multiple languages, and as we said, that have got mathematical skills or an understanding of music that's, beyond the average person, if they can't control the physical body easily, then there's a big learning curve for them to be able to even point to letters on a board or type on a keyboard or a tablet. And yet, if you make the assumption when you're dealing with these people that they do have intelligence, and that as they develop the ability to communicate with you in a way you can understand, you might just discover that they have other ways of communicating with you and other people that you have great difficulty mastering. And it might be this telepathy. It might be communicating mind to mind without using the vocal cords. And that's what these podcasts, the 10 podcasts so far, are all about, titled the Telepathy Tapes, and they're free wherever you get your podcasts. And Kai, K-Y is her name, is the woman who's running the podcast and doing the research with the doctor who came out and wrote a book about this and had her medical license revoked because she wrote the book. And of course, the people that revoked her medical license revoked it because she wrote the book without even reading the book. And then eventually it all got straightened out. It cost her a lot in terms of her career and her finances, but she got her license restored, etc. But the idea is there's a lot of bias against groundbreaking new evidence and theories, etc. And there are people who really don't want to allow for the possibility that some human beings actively communicate with mental telepathy, that they communicate without any verbal utterances or typing. And some of those people can learn to do the typing. They can learn to spell on a spelling board by pointing to letters on the board, or type it onto a keypad or a laptop. And when that happens, then we have another access point to explanations about what is it like for a person to live in a body that is difficult to control and that doesn't have verbal facility. And yet inside that body, or attached to that body, is a mind that has phenomenal capacity for understanding things, for accessing knowledge, for reading another person's mind, for ingesting the contents of a book without seeing it by simply placing their hand on it. Things that will absolutely blow your mind if you're at all open-minded, if you listen to this podcast series titled The Telepathy Tapes. And at a point in the tapes, they mention that there is a book that has been written by one of the mothers of these people who is nonverbally autistic and her son. And that book is titled The Book of Heaven, A Story of Hope for the Outcasts, the Broken, and Those Who Lost Faith. And I'm just beginning the reading of that book on a Kindle. And I'm not sure how much of it we're going to go into on this show, but I did want to mention that I'm, as I frequently mention on this Mindshifters Radio, I'm always open for suggestions about books I should read, or people I should interview, or podcasts I should listen to, whether I will invite them to the Mindshifters Radio, which is the podcast you're on now, or I would interview them for the Journey's Dream hosted podcast titled On Your Mind. And that's a podcast I've been donating my time to for the past 5 years for the nonprofit titled Journey's Dream, where they're trying to help rewrite the narrative on mental health to one in which optimal health and well-being is possible are both possible and expected. So again, feel free to type a comment in to the Podbean app or raise a hand to say hello and talk directly to us. Apparently that is an option in the Podbean app. And let us know how the sound is, and or if you have any questions about anything we've talked about over the last 14 years on Mindshifters Radio, or any of the tools that Dr. Michael and Jeannie Rice offer, or this latest offering that I'm discussing, which is the Telepathy Tapes as a podcast. There's a quote from Helen Keller in the beginning of this book. It says, "Security is mostly a superstition. It does not exist in nature, nor do the children of men as a whole experience it. Avoiding danger is no safer in the long run than outright exposure. The fearful are caught as often as the bold. Faith alone defends. Life is either a daring adventure or nothing." That's a quote from Helen Keller. And if you're not familiar with it, Helen Keller was nonverbal and blind and deaf. And so even as I say that, it sounds ridiculous that somebody who is blind and deaf and can't speak had so much intelligence in her that she wrote books, that she was a teacher. And again, if that can happen in one person, it might be happening with practically every nonverbal human. That, as we talk about with blindness, frequently people mention that if a person loses his or her sight, then their other senses become more heightened. They have a more refined sense of hearing, and or a more refined sense of touch, and or a more refined sense of proprioception, or their space in the world. And if that can happen at one level, what's to say it isn't happening with every individual who has the intelligence that is not easily expressed verbally. So please let us know how this is landing for you. If you have a comment or a question, whether you're just going to type a comment or raise a hand to say hello on the Podbean app. The last I heard from Jeannie, she had sent out the notification that today's show would be on Podbean, and 300 or more people had opened that email. So we know that there's, out of the several thousand people that email goes out to, that people have been aware that we're on Podbean today as a replacement for Needle until Needle is able to solve their technical difficulties. So, also a reminder, if you want to send a comment or a question through an email, my email is tjh@mindshifters-academy.org. Mindshifters-academy.org. And Jeannie's email is jeanie@whyagain.org. That's WHYAGAIN.org. We had our support group last night, and it ended up being a night mostly of poetry and discussion. the idea in, I forget exactly how we stumbled across it, but one of the people that was in the group was going through some difficult things, and it led me to read the book Joy in Disguise, or not the book, but the writing Joy in Disguise. It was written by Erica Vega, one of our group members, back in, I think she wrote it in 23. Her daughter Dakota was stillborn on February of 22. And in response to the whole process of grieving and, giving birth to a child that was stillborn, and then immediately finding out that as soon as she's starting to recover, that her mother has terminal cancer, and accepting that she gets to be alive and she gets to go through these grieving processes, and she gets to care for her mother as her mother goes through the last phases of her life, that it's a privilege to have life at any level. And the way she wrote about it was just stunningly beautiful to my eye and ear. So we started with that and then had some discussion. And then there's a piece by Andrea Gibson that talks about, what if when the body dies, the soul misses everything about the body? What if it misses every ache and pain, every, let's call it, striking of the funny bone and shooting pain down the arm and hand? What if it misses insomnia? What if the soul misses being able to feel at any level from the physical realm? And it's a beautiful piece. I think the title of it is "For the Day I Stop Wanting a Body." And that led us to then listen to an interview with Krista Tippett as she interviewed David White, Whyte. And David is an English-Irish poet / philosopher who is one of my favorites. And the interview that he did with Krista Tippett back in, I think it's 2018, is one of my favorites. The discussion and I think 5 or 6 different pieces of his poetry that he wrote, that he read during that interview. And they were talking about his book Consolations, which is taking specific words and then writing a piece about that word, the deep meaning of the word at a literal level and a figurative level, and the role of key words in our lives. So we highly recommend finding a way to think differently about your life, whether it's through the use of poetry or the use of things like Dr. Michael Rice's reality management worksheet, or targeted journaling that helps you explore what you might be hiding from yourself in your consciousness. Some people call it the unconscious. And as I talk about it, as I work with people on this internet show and in the support groups, I'm always doing it with an eye toward the practical. How can I use this to make a practical difference in my life now and tomorrow and the next day? And as I have mentioned on many occasions over the past 14 years, one of the most powerful tools for doing that doesn't require me to go to a therapist and it doesn't require years of training is the reality management worksheet. And every time I've got an upset, it can be mild, moderate, or severe, I can benefit by putting it on a reality management worksheet, whether it's from the app on your app store. To reiterate that, if you go to your app store, whether it's an Android or an Apple app store, type in the 3 words Heartland, all one word, Heartland, Heartland, Aramaic, Aramaic, and the word forgiveness. If you do that before you're done typing the word forgiveness, you'll see the icon, the picture of a little glowing heart. If you tap on that, you get access to this tool I'm discussing right now. The tool understands at a fundamental level that we create all of our emotional experiences. We create our interpretation for and therefore our responses and experience of life at every level. It's one of the things that Way of Mastery says in the first lesson. The first axiom is you only experience the effects of your choices. And so you are choosing how to interpret and respond to everything that hits your senses, and that is how you are creating your experience of whatever it is that hits your senses. And in that process, if you're not enjoying, if you're not content with, if you're not getting a deep satisfaction from your experience of life, you can change your experience of life by changing the way you interpret and respond to what you experience. So, in that reality management worksheet, the most important thing to do near the top is recognize this is me doing this, that reality is that it's strictly internal, it's unique to me, and it's created out of my own thoughts. And the next step is to identify what emotion am I experiencing right now? What emotion am I creating and therefore experiencing? The next thing is I let my mind tell me who or what it thinks is creating my upset. Because my mind is busy telling me, as the culture has been, programmed me to think, he made me angry, she hurt my feelings, it is scaring me. So I put that down in the third piece of the first step of the reality management worksheet. Here's what's happening. I opened the door, there was a loud noise. My mind tells me my neighbor is, shooting off fireworks in the hallway, and that's scaring me. The next thing I do is I specify what's the thought that I'm using to create the unpleasant emotion that I put in the second step, or the second part of that first step of the worksheet. And if I'm clear about the thought I'm using to generate the negative emotion, as I stumble across that thought, I'm going to feel the emotion more strongly. So I'm going to feel the resonance in it. I'm going to know, okay, I've got the right thought. So now I've got the thought, I've got the emotion that arises when I pour my mind energy into that thought, and I've got what my mind is telling me about who's creating all of this upset. The next step is I let my mind tell me what it thinks needs to happen in order for me to have peace or calm or to move forward or to heal here. And that's the third step where I say, okay, I'm going to identify what's this pie in the sky utopian type goal that if I had a magic wand and I could wave it and make a change in the world or in this person outside of me or in these life circumstances, what would I make it be? And I specify that goal. And then the fourth step is I connect to my true nature as love. I try to shift the heart energy to something more loving. I remember some of the most loving, peaceful, happy, strong, contented times of my life and breathe into it until I actually feel a shift in my heart space. And then, oddly enough, I decide to cancel my thought that's creating the emotion and cancel the goal and ask to be shown something else from a different part of my mind energy, from a different part of my mind itself, from a different part of my history and experience. I ask to be shown what's another way to look at this life circumstance? What a way to interpret and respond to it so I might create a different experience for myself. And then I do a little breathing and softening, and if I've got the time, I'll read the forgiveness pattern, which is available for free download or to listen to an MP3 of me reciting it on the mindshiftersacademy.org website under the educational materials page. And the forgiveness pattern sounds something like this. I cancel my need to be right. I cancel my need for anyone or anything to change, including myself. I put my conscious logical mind on the shelf for now. I cancel the specific goal in this worksheet, and I ask to be shown the hidden part of my own mind that's actually creating this upset or this negative emotion. And then I just breathe and soften and put myself in the most open, allowing space I can. And I notice changes in the body physically. I notice the thoughts that might arise. I notice images, memories if they come up. If I get a flash of a memory from an earlier time in my life, I let myself feel how old was I, where was I, who else was there, and what was happening. I let myself feel into that memory fully. And I just make notes about whatever is bubbling up in my mind. If I'm 30, if I'm 40, if I'm 70 years old, and I cancel the goal to have something change in my life for today, and I flash on something that happened 5 years ago or 50 years ago, there's a reason it's coming to mind. And I simply want to trust the process and make some notes about it and breathe and soften and stay with that, gently reciting, I cancel my need to be right. I cancel my need for anyone or anything to change, including myself. I specifically cancel my goal in that worksheet. I put my conscious logical mind on the shelf for now. And I ask to be shown from something other than my conscious logical mind a different way to look at my life situation, a different way to interpret and respond to what's hitting my senses. And then I stay with that, doing that breathing and relaxing until I notice that my energy is shifted and decreased, the negative energy is fading away, or I get an insight to a previous time in my life, a connection, or I realize that my mind is just going to spin here and go nowhere. And when one of those three things happens, I take a nice, deep, cleansing breath, let it all go, and I scan my body and notice what's the strongest physical sensation or the strongest emotion I'm aware of experiencing in that moment. And I just make a note of it on the worksheet. And most of the time when I do these worksheets, what happens is I get a decrease in the intensity of the negative emotional state. And that's about it. I kind of go unconscious or I go blank. I don't get any deep insight. I don't have a deep transformation, and yet I feel better. And if I'm willing to observe that, right there is more confirmation that I'm creating my own life, because here I'm sitting doing a worksheet process. Nothing outside me has changed, and all of a sudden I feel differently. I feel better. And there are two more steps on the worksheet process. step 6 and step 7, and you can do those. You can find them on the worksheet on whyagain.org, whyagain.org, and click on the 2 words that say start here, or click on the word on the front page. There'll be a word for worksheets, and you'll be able to see it online or download it for yourself, or you can, as we said, you can go to the App Store and type in the 3 words Heartland Aramaic Forgiveness, and you can get full access to the free and private app. And as I say in the intro, we hope people do all of that soon and often, primarily because it tends to improve the quality of people's lives the more they actively apply these tools in their lives, and secondarily because it tends to prompt comments and questions, answers and testimonials. And we'd greatly appreciate it if you would share that with us if you have any of those. So please feel free to type a comment in the Podbean app or raise a hand to talk as a caller. We've got about 25 minutes left, and we'd love to hear from you. It's a challenge to move from platform to platform, and we are hoping to land in the platform needle in the near future with it functioning well. And we appreciate your patience. If you're one of those who's bouncing around with us from Zoom to Needle to Podbean, trying to find a new home after 14 years of being with Blog Talk Radio and having Blog Talk Radio close its doors, I'm not sure they had a going out of business sale, but they went out of business. And much gratitude goes out to Jeannie Rice for her tireless efforts to help us locate and then work through all the bugs of the several pieces of the puzzle that have to be put in place to do what Blog Talk Radio did as a one-stop shop. And if you're listening, I'm assuming it's because you've gotten the email from Jeannie Rice that we were on Podbean today. So if you have comments or questions, email Jeannie, and on a regular basis, check your updates file in your email to find out what's the latest from Jeannie Rice about where we are on the Mindshifters Radio and how to follow along. Today, I've been notified that Michael and Jeannie have been pressed into family duty once again, and so they will not be available for a live show. She has a recorded show loaded up that will broadcast on Podbean, and hopefully they'll be able to join us for live shows tomorrow and Friday of this week. So let me know, how is this landing for you? I have several pieces of writing that I have been called to recently. One of them is from Thich Nhat Hanh, and Thich Nhat Hanh is a Vietnamese Buddhist, was a Vietnamese Buddhist. He's not in the body anymore. And his ideas, beautiful, gentle, focused, primarily around love, around respect and decency for all human beings and the gift of life itself. So I highly recommend, while I had some significant difficulty following with his heavy accent over the years, I always enjoyed reading from books like Being Peace by Thich Nhat Hanh and Old Path, White Clouds by Thich Nhat Hanh. He offers walking meditation. He offers a short poem you can recite from time to time while breathing and smiling. And that poem reads, breathing in, I calm my body. Breathing out, I smile. Dwelling in the present moment, I know this is a wonderful moment. Breathing in, I calm my body. If you're willing to do that, it might start to strike you as the effects of like drinking a glass of ice water. You can feel the cold freshness permeate your body. And Thich Nhat Hanh writes, when I breathe in and recite this line, I actually feel the breathing calming my body and calming my mind. Breathing out, I smile. You know the effect of a smile. You feel a genuine smile when it happens with you. A smile can relax hundreds of muscles in your face and relax your nervous system. A smile makes you master yourself. That is why the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas are always smiling. When you smile, you realize the wonder of a smile. Dwelling in the present moment, the next line from that poem, he says, while I sit here, I don't think of somewhere else. I don't think of the future or the past. I sit here, I know where I am. This is very important. We tend to be alive in the future, not now. We say, wait until I finish school and get my PhD degree, then I will really be alive. When we have it, and it wasn't easy to get, we say to ourselves, now I have to wait to get a job in order to be really alive, really happy. And then after I get the job, I say, well, but now I need to get a car. And after the car, a house. Many of us are not capable of being alive in the present moment unless we train ourselves to do that. We tend to postpone being alive to the future, to the distant, or even the distant future. And we don't even know when that will come. We tend to postpone our pleasure, our acceptance of ourselves to the future. Now is the only moment to be alive. We may never be alive at all in our entire life if we keep pushing it off to the future. Therefore, this technique, if we have to speak of a technique, is to be present in the moment, to be aware that we are here and now, and the only moment to be alive is in this present moment. The next line in the poem is, I know this is a wonderful moment. And he writes, this is the only moment that is real. To be here and now and enjoy the present moment is our most important task. Calming, smiling, present moment, wonderful moment. I hope you try this meditation, he writes. Even though life is hard, even though it is sometimes difficult to smile, we can try. Just as when we wish each other good morning, it must be a real good morning. Recently, a friend asked me, how can I force myself to smile when I'm filled with sorrow? It isn't natural. I told her she must be able to smile to her sorrow because we are more than our sorrow. A human being is like a television set with millions of channels. If we turn the Buddha on, we are the Buddha. If we turn on sorrow, we are sorrow. If we turn on a smile, we really are the smile. We can't just let one channel dominate us. We have the seeds of everything in us, and we take the situation in hand to recover our own sovereignty. When we sit down peacefully, breathing and smiling with awareness, we are our true selves, and we have sovereignty over ourselves. When we open ourselves up to a TV program, we let ourselves be invaded by the TV program. Sometimes it's a good program, but often it's just noisy. Because we want to have something other than ourselves enter us, we sit here and let the noisy television program invade us, assail us, destroy us. Even if our nervous system suffers, we don't have the courage to stand up and turn it off, because if we do that, we'll have to return to ourself. And there are many of us who are afraid of ourselves. Reminds me of the story I've told before that Guy Finley would tell. He tells the story of some pilots in the Second World War that their plane crashes and they all survive, but there's damage, so they can't transmit on their radio, but the receiver still works. So they're hiding in caves during the day, and at night the captain sends a private up to the top of the mountain, the highest mountain around, so he can sit there with the receiver on and listen, because he knows that there's going to be a rescue mission, and all they need to do is listen for the coordinates that will come through so they know where to show up when the ship comes to rescue them. So the first night, the private goes up in the middle of the night, and he's up there all night, and he comes back before the daylight, and the captain says, "So what did you hear? Did you get anything?" And the private says, No, Captain, nothing." Second night, same thing. Third night, same thing. The captain says, "Something's not right here." So the fourth night, he sends the private up to the top of this, small mountain, tall hill, and the captain follows. And he's hiding in the bushes, watching what the private's doing, and the private's up there surfing the dial. He's surfing the radio dial, and he's listening to things in Portuguese and French and German and Polish, and the captain bursts out of the bushes and says, "What are you doing, man? I know, I've read your personality profile. I know you don't speak any language other than English. Why are you scanning on, listening to all of this music and these people speaking when you're supposed to be up here listening for the signal about where we should show up to get rescued?" And the private said, "Well, but Captain, I was bored. I didn't want to be up here all by myself." And Guy Finley uses this as the message that there's always wisdom. There's always a different way to look at things. There's always the present moment being delightful and wonderful and a gift if we will not distract ourselves from it, if we will learn this inner focused meditation of love and acceptance and beauty and calm. And most of us don't slow down and tune into the internal wisdom or the source of wisdom within every one of us that is our birthright. And that's what Thich Nhat Hanh is writing about in his book, Being Peace. He says meditation is the opposite of letting ourselves be distracted by the television or the radio or the drugs or the food or the spending or the gambling. He says this meditation helps us return to our true self. Practicing meditation in this kind of society can be difficult. Everything seems to work in concert to try to get us to focus on everything but our true self. We have thousands of things. Videotapes, music, iPhones, all of these things, countless channels on the television and the radio to help us be away from the focus on our true self. He says, practicing meditation is to be aware, to breathe. These things are on the opposite side of the coin from each other, the distraction versus the meditation. And you do the meditation not to do something or accomplish something, just to be aware and awake of your true self and the gift of life in this moment. We go back to ourselves in order to see what's going on, because to meditate means to be aware of what is going on. What is going on within you in this moment, your true self, is very important. Thich Nhat Hanh goes on, he says, suppose you're expecting a child. You need to breathe and smile for the baby. Please don't wait until your baby is born before beginning to take care of him or her. You can take care of your baby right now. If you can't smile, that's very serious. You might think, I'm too sad. Smiling just isn't the correct thing to do. Maybe crying or shouting would be correct. And yet, will your baby get it? Anything you are, whatever you focus on, anything you do is for your baby. Even if you do not have a baby in your womb, the seed is already there. Even if you are not married, even if you are a man, you should be aware that a baby is already there. The seeds of future generations are already there within you. Please don't wait until the doctors tell you that you're going to have a baby to begin to take care of it. It's already there. Whatever you are, whatever you do, your baby will receive it. Anything you eat, any worries that are on your mind will be for him or her. Can you tell me that you cannot smile? Think of the baby and smile for him, for her, for future generations. Please don't tell me that a smile and your sorrow just don't go together. It's your sorrow, but what about your baby? It's not his sorrow. It's not her sorrow. Children understand very well in each woman, in each man, in each child, there is a capacity of waking up, of understanding, and of loving. Many children have told me that they cannot show me anyone who does not have this capacity. Some people allow it to develop, and some do not, and yet everyone has it. This capacity of waking up, of being aware of what is going on in your feelings, in your body, in your perceptions, in the world, it is called Buddha nature. The capacity of understanding and loving, Buddha nature. Since the baby of that Buddha is in us, we should give him or her a chance. Smiling is very important. If we're not able to smile, then the world will not have peace. It's not going out for a demonstration against nuclear missiles that we can bring about peace. It is with our capacity of smiling, breathing, and being at peace within us that we can make peace. So Thich Nhat Hanh has many of the pieces of what the Way of Mastery and the Course in Miracles have, calling us to understand that what we create within ourselves is connected to everything around us, that we're constantly broadcasting out to the world around us, whether we're at conflict inside or at peace inside, whether we're in sadness inside or anger inside, or in compassion or in accepting, loving nature, tuned into our true nature, that every energy we amplify within us gets projected out to the world around us. So your contribution to the world around you is, are you sitting there in deep sadness? Are you sitting there in anger? Are you sitting there radiating peace? And there's a Buddhist practice called Tonglen that has you breathe in the pain of the world and breathe out love and healing. Breathe in your own pain and breathe out love and healing. Breathe in the anger and sadness of the world around you and breathe out loving and healing energy. tapping into the center of your being is tapping into the bodhicitta, that core connection to the soul of life itself within you, and allowing that awareness, that sweet inner child awareness within you, to transform or transmute any negative energy that you breathe in. And then as you breathe out, you're breathing out that loving, healing energy, and you get the benefits of it first. Many people understand this. Dr. Michael Rice has written of it specifically in the Reality Management Worksheet. In the 7th step, it says, look, one of the truths of the universe is that in order to give anything to somebody else, I have to first take possession of it myself. In order to teach my children how to have love and appreciation for themselves, how to have good self-esteem, how to have good self-confidence, I must first create those within me, or I won't be able to give them to my child. Deep wisdom cutting across many different spiritual traditions from Eastern and Western cultures. So here's hoping this has been a benefit. Here's hoping that you can work to remember. I like to end my blog posts and internet shows with the following. We come from love. We're made of love. We are this stuff of creation that some call love, and everything else is false. I hope that what we're doing here in the specific use of these tools and the reading and discussing some of these teachers that understand the dynamics of this is beneficial to you. If it is, please take it and use it and have the best year yet of your eternal life, as Dr. Michael Rice would say. And we will work to be back again tomorrow and Friday.